Hello and happy Wednesday to you, Blazer Nation. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in this morning. You are right here tuned in live to our MissionFuel Wednesday broadcast with myself, Stephen A. Hart, and my amazing millionaire partner on these Wednesday mornings, Mr. Shawn Dove. Just to share a little bit about me, I'm a marketer, a serial entrepreneur, a content creator, a brand strategist, and I'm most proud of my roles as Kristen's husband, and together we are proud parents to two amazing crumb snatchers. I'm also Jamaican, so I'm leaving out a dozen other titles. But you can learn more about me over at stephenahart.com and connect with me on Twitter and the gram at Stephen A. Hart, where we can continue the conversation. Before I jump in, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my partner in crime, Shawn Dove. He is a speaker, an author, an advocate like no other for leaders who want to improve the lives of young people, especially Black men and boys. He's also co-author of the book, I Too Am America. It's coming out real soon. And his superpower is that he is a master connector. You can learn more about Shawn over at dovesoars.com, and he is very active across social as well, but most often seen on Twitter, and you can follow him there at Dove Soars. Good morning, my brother.
Good morning, my good brother Stephen A. Hart, and it is so great to see you. And
Yes.
Again, I just got to thank you for all that you do and for creating and building the Trailblazers platform and tricking me to join you every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. just to share some mission fuel and just to help folks get their day started off right. And folks are like, well, what's this mission fuel thing, right? And we're all on a mission, right? Some of us are trying to clarify what our mission is, but mission fuel is like the gas, it's the inspiration. It can come in a call from a dear friend. It can come from a song. It can come from just your faith. It can come from whatever it is to keep you keeping on, right? And today I am just excited to share the Trailblazers platform with a dear brother whom I've known for 15, 18 years. And I just want to welcome Brother David Miller to the Trailblazers platform, MissionFuel Wednesday. And when we talk about billionaire, right? And, we've been hearing about billionaire. I think Elon Musk made $39 billion yesterday, and we all can be billionaires, right? But we all can be millionaires, right? Having the will to make a change, the will, when they say that, where there's a will, there are several ways.
Yes.
And this brother right here is a prolific individual and member of our community and village. And I first met David Miller when I was, leading the Mentoring Partnership of New York, and we just connected and brought him into Queens to speak. And he had just published a book, a training manual called Dare to be King. what if the prince lives? And he's done that, and he's just been so prolific, right? So, David, welcome. Tell the Trailblazers audience just a little bit about yourself and what's your mission fuel for today.
So good morning, Shawn and Stephen. Super excited to share a Wednesday morning with you guys. Always good to start off the morning on a positive note. I'm a son of Baltimore. I'm a son of West Baltimore. Grew up, born and raised on the west side of Baltimore. And my mission fuel is I want to see communities win. I want to see families and children win. And so my mission fuel is to do whatever I can to ensure that children and families and fathers and grandmothers and grandparents are able to win, because we live in a country, y'all, that literally will crush the life out of people. And so my goal is to always try to figure out ways, as one of our mentors, Ron Walker, always talks about, trying to figure out what that secret sauce is to ensure that families can win.
And so, what I really want our audience to know today, right? Because there are folks, David, that have gifts and they're deciding and entrepreneurial dreams. You are a perfect model and an example that you can be an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, and at the same time build your community, right? And you have been a prolific author, youth developer, a community builder, and what's been that inspiration? What has been that spark? And we're going to just talk later about all that you have produced and are producing, but just let us know what has been your inspiration to just be so impactful.
You know, my inspiration is and has been having amazing parents and an amazing support system. I think all too often we kind of minimize the impact that parents have on the socialization of their children. I grew up in a tough city, Baltimore, but my parents were my shining light. My grandparents, my great grandparents were my shining light, along with just being able to get connected early in life to dope Black men. I think, again, we live in a society that often marginalizes Black men, and I've been mentored by amazing Black men, from my first Pop Warner football coach to my wrestling coach, to other Black men in barbershops and in other community spaces that I ventured into. I've always been impacted by the resilience and spirit of Black men. And so that's really been a testament to my life. And of course, you can't minimize the role of Black women, my mother, my grandmother, many of my teachers, female teachers growing up. So again, even though, like many of us, I grew up in a tough city, I've just been so blessed by the input that older adults had on me growing up, and even now at 53, having so many wise mentors like a Ron Walker in Boston, a Dr. Doreen Lowry in Philadelphia, an Ademola Ekolona in Baltimore, just men and women who have consistently poured into me, Shawn and Stephen. I think we minimize our relationships and the imprint that others have had on us. I do not take that for granted.
You know, talking about relationships, I have folks, that in the morning I'm texting with, and there was a friend this morning. We were going back and forth, and we were just talking about just our testimony and how often we got to go through stuff, right? That pain and obstacles and adversity reveals our purpose, right? And then we have choices. Do we give up, or do we keep on keeping on, right? And you made reference, you are a son of Baltimore, and you made reference growing up in tough parts of Baltimore. What was the adversity that has propelled you to be a man of purpose?
Well, man, there was several, man. I think whenever you grew up in an urban environment, just the sheer loss of human potential. I think back to some of the cats that I went to elementary and middle school with, and losing friends at a very early age. And then, Shawn, you may not know this because I don't talk about it a lot, but I'm just going to share with y'all just in terms of when you think about that road from tragedy to triumph. Many people who know me know that when I was a sophomore in college, I was at Morgan State. My best friend was at Morehouse. He had come home during summer vacation. Some guys tried to rob us in front of a nightclub. They started shooting. My best friend was shot in the back. He died in my arms. But even before that, my freshman year of college, I attended Wilberforce University, a small, historically Black college in 25 miles outside of Dayton, Ohio. I ended up leaving my first semester because a young lady died in my arms. There was an accident on campus. And by the time myself and some other guys got over and tried to assist, we were able to pull 3 of the girls out of the car. The 4th young lady died in my arms because she was stuck between the steering wheel and the seat based on the impact, and she died in my arms. And so I experienced, outside of seeing my first dead body at 12 or 13 years old in the community, I experienced 2 major traumas at a very important time in my development, 18, 19 years old. The car accident with this young lady, and then witnessing my best friend be shot and killed, literally standing in front of me, were part of those growing pains and part of those things that I had to come to grips with in terms of early trauma. And so for me, all of my work has been really understanding my own trauma, understanding the trauma in my own community, way before there was any conversation about an ACE score. I knew that I had faced some challenges that I needed to confront. And interestingly enough, Shawn and Stephen, I just went back to Wilberforce University this weekend. I hadn't been back in 25 years because I needed to cross that off on my list. I went back to where the accident was. I went back to where my dorm room was. Anybody went to Wilberforce, I stayed in Wright Hall. And so a lot of times, y'all, particularly those of us that grew up in urban communities, there are things that happen to us. They're demons in our closet that we never confront. And so for me, it's been always confronting those demons, always thinking about the human potential, the friends, the family members that we've lost along the way. My brother, Shawn, as you know, just passed away. He was 55 years old, died of cancer, wasn't going to the doctor. And so for me, I mean, a lot of times people ask me, how come I haven't gone insane? For me, it's really that self-care.
Yes.
It's also the ability to kind of step away from the work. When you talk about mission fuel, part of the mission fuel is you got to know when to step away from the work.
And you just talked about, and we'll come to this, you're just coming off a 30-day a social media fast, right? And one of the things, and that's part of our self-care and our mental health. We were just talking about before we came on the air how this social media and addiction to social media and it being used incorrectly is not good for our mental health. But you just shared something, and I knew about your friend that was murdered in your arms. I had not heard the story about Wilberforce and the car accident and the tragedy of the woman dying in your arms. And, one of the things that I write about in my book, and you have been one of the chief proponents, and you've been prolific as an author, right? We'll get to your 5 books in a minute of writing and telling our stories, right? And one of the things in my book that I talk about is, the story that we tell ourselves. Sometimes we normalize and romanticize trauma in the Black community and say that this is just part of the natural experience. And so I had a traumatic experience at 9 years old, and for all of my life, that was my Harlem resiliency story. And it wasn't until I was 57 years old that I would realize that 2 things could be true. Yes, Shawn, this was a story of resiliency, but it was also trauma as well. And it was a day at 9 years old when I traveled the trains by myself and got abducted, right? And I survived it. And I had to, it's funny when you talk about going back to Wilberforce, I had to go back and recount that subway ride and get back on the right train. And so much, David, I wanted just you to talk a little bit more about just the mental health. And you've been an advocate because too often as leaders, right, as social entrepreneurs, as parents, as husbands, we have unrecognized and unresolved trauma. And I know that you've been an advocate for that, and particularly for Black men. I just want you to elevate, how have you been addressing that and being an advocate for that in our community?
So one of the big things is you gotta find your sweet spot. You have to find something that you like doing that takes you away from the work. I think in meetings we talk about work-life balance, but then we don't actualize it in terms of principles. So anybody who knows me also knows that I am a fisherman and I love going fishing. And for me, I will cancel. Shawn, if you call me today and said we're gonna drive up to Boston and hook up with Ron Walk and we going fishing, I'm calling all of my clients and like, look, I'm sorry, I'm unavailable for the next 48 hours because I'm going fishing. So for me, I rediscovered the healing properties of just being on the water. Me and my brother got introduced to fishing early in life through my grandfather. And so for me, fishing is one of those things that's my sweet spot. I tell my wife, unless the house is burning down, if I'm fishing, don't call. But even if the house is burning down, call 911. We have insurance. It's nothing that I can really do. I'm on the water. And so particularly for Black men, y'all, because we've been classically conditioned to believe that we got to work. And then we got to work to the point where we fall out.
John Henry.
Man, I was doing a workshop with some men up in Rochester, New York, with the Rochester school system, and the brothers one brother was telling me he had like 600 and some odd hours of sick time, but that he never takes off of work because he feels like if he misses a day from work, something is going to happen at the job. And I'm like, bro, first of all, it's not even your company. That's number one. And number two, if something happens because you take off a personal day, a sick day, then if the whole company implodes because you take off for a day or several days, then something is wrong with your business model. But again, y'all, I just think that we've been classically conditioned to work. A lot of times we use this term grind, but when you break the definition down of what does grinding actually mean, like you hear a lot of these young men talk about what grinding means. When you look up the term grinding in the dictionary, it really is when you have gears that are rubbing together to the point where it causes a lot of friction, and then it ends up breaking down or reduces the effectiveness of a machine because those parts are grinding. So even in the language that we use, we talk about our work in ways that are not healthy. And I think those are things that are sadly sending Black men to early graves. In the last year or two, Shawn and Stephen, I know more Black men that have died from hypertension, heart attacks, strokes, and diabetes than COVID, because we are working ourselves to death.
I just appreciate you just continuing to elevate that, because to the brother, if he drops dead, he'll get maybe a little memorial gathering, and they'll be looking for his replacement just like that. Mm-hmm. And you talk about sweet spot, David, and you have been an inspiration for the sweet spot that you have discovered as a prolific author, right? When I first met you, you had published Dare to Be King, the leadership manual, but you are also the author of several children's books. Chef Toussaint, Gabe and the Green Thumb, Khalil's Way, Brooklyn's Finest. I know that you're working on a couple of more that are coming out at the end of this year and the beginning of this year. Tell us about this sweet spot and why a focus on literacy. And we branded this MissionFuel Wednesday, readers are leaders, right? Why?
Yeah, man. And so representation matters. And all three of us have children. I remember when my children were younger, and unless I went to a Black-owned bookstore, it was very difficult, and it's still the case today, to find books with Black and brown characters. Even if you go to Barnes and Nobles today, you will see a very limited supply of culturally relevant children's books that actually speak to our children, right? And so I just decided that I really wanted to be a major player in the children's book space, and that I didn't necessarily have to bow down to any of the larger publishing companies. So when I wrote my first children's book, I hired Jerry Craft, who many of you know as a New York Times best-selling graphic novelist. He has the hottest graphic novels out. I hired Jerry Craft, but this is when Jerry was still an independent or indie writer. And I remember we submitted our book to several publishing companies, and literally people were telling us Black boys don't read. And I'm blown away that a publishing company would tell me that Black boys don't read when I have a son in the house who is a voracious reader. And I'm meeting boys because I'm a former school teacher. I'm meeting young men who are voracious readers when they see themselves on the pages of books. So I said, to hell with the traditional publishing route, that I'm a publish my own books, because I'd already published a curriculum called Dare to Be King, What If the Prince Lives? And a shout out to the Open Society Foundation, because I was an Open Society fellow, which gave me the space and the resources to publish my first curriculum. But I had already published a highly successful life skills curriculum for Black boys that I'm using all over the country, right? That I'm getting requests from other countries to come present my work, and that other groups outside of the US even want to use my curriculum. So I said, look, if others can do it, I can do it. So I started to really focus heavily on publishing children's books, and I currently have 6 super exciting children's books. My niche, Shawn and Stephen, is I want to publish children's books with really dynamic stories, with very powerful characters. Sadly, most of the children's books that are written for Black children, there's always some kind of tragedy in the story. A good friend of ours, Shawn, reached out to me yesterday, brother Alex Ellis, another really good brother that you guys may want to bring on. He reached out to me and asked him to send him a list of like the top 10 books for Black teenagers. And sadly, a lot of those books include some kind of tragedy. So when you look at my books, and you can go to my website, I have several websites, IamDavidMiller.com, IamDavidMiller.com, and you can see some of my children's books. Super powerful storyline. Oftentimes there is an element of history in all of my books. My new book is Chef Toussaint. It's a magical story about a 9-year-old African-American male who's a master chef. So I also, in all of my books, teach young people how to dream. And Chef Toussaint is named after the freedom fighter, revolutionary Toussaint Louverture. And then what you'll find in all of my books, you'll find an element of Black history or African history. And also there are activities in the back of my books for children and families. So when you look in the back of the book, I have some super creative recipes for families and children, so that families and children can come together and create. In one of my new books, Shawn, coming up, the title is Winnie, the Wizard of Wall Street. The lead character is named after Winnie Mandela, our South African shero, because many children do not know about the life and legacy of Nelson and Winnie Mandela. And Winnie is a 9-year-old who is already buying and trading stocks. And so it's a book that's really teaching young people about financial literacy at an early age. So all of the stories that I write, I spend a lot of time doing research on my books. I only hire Black illustrators, Black editors. And again, my goal is to change the game around literacy and exposure. Our children are being inundated by too much negativity. And so all of my books really focus on the best of what it means to be Black in America.
That is so powerful, brother, so inspiring. And, there's this saying, the riches are in the niches, and you have carved out this niche, right? And I know that you are obviously not, because I know you and your spirit doing it for money, right? You are doing it to build community. However, you did say, and I do know that you have 3 children, you have some college tuitions and tuitions, right? And so we have to generate revenue, right? And so we can build our community and be entrepreneurs at the same time.
Yes.
And David, what would you say to young person that wants to, this is Trailblazers podcast, and you blaze the trail. What are the 3 to 5 things that you would say to a young person, and as they start out, or old, right? Wherever they starting, to build their social entrepreneurial strategy, business, to follow the trail that you have blazed? What advice would you give them?
So the first thing is you got to be nimble, because stuff gonna happen. I mean, you got to be nimble, right? I can't tell you the family challenges. I can't begin to tell you some of the family challenges I've had over the last 6 months. Losing my brother at 55, my dad has been sick, and then just a whole host of other challenges, and have my own family, wife and 3 children. So you got to be nimble, right? Every day is an adventure. There are going to be obstacles and pitfalls that you're going to have to overcome. And so being nimble. The second thing is this mental toughness. Shawn, I've been told no so many times. I thought no was my middle name, right? But like there's a degree of mental toughness. When somebody tells me no, I immediately tell them, I need to speak to your supervisor, or I need to speak to the person that's over top of you, because obviously you didn't understand and process my request. And so I just don't take no for an answer. The third thing is when you walk into my bathroom, the good thing is me and my wife, we got separate bathrooms. That's a whole nother story for those of y'all who are married. And on my wall in my bathroom, I have this sheet of paper that says you won't outwork me. You might be smarter than me. You might have more charisma. You might be a better writer, but at the end of the day, you are not going to outwork me. I have an unbelievable work ethic. And so for the young people, develop a work ethic. The other thing is research. Do your research. When you step into a room, ensure that you are one of the most well-read people in the building. And I'm talking about politics, economics, you name the subject. I try to read everything. I read medical journals. I spend a lot of time reading foreign newspapers, because when I step in the room, I want to be able to have a conversation with anybody. The other thing I tell a young person is value relationships. We minimize the power of relationships. I really believe that I am, 1 or 2 emails or phone calls from reaching most people in this country. I can pick up the phone email a Shawn Dove and say that I need to get in touch with this person. And Shawn might reach in his Rolodex and call one or two other people. There is beauty in maximizing relationships. Never burn any bridges. Even if you end a relationship not on good terms, be willing to apologize, even if you can salvage the relationship to the point where you are civil. I think too often we burn bridges and we don't honor relationships.
Wow. So just quick recap for those that were listening. We asked David, what advice would he give anyone that's building their like social entrepreneurial a strategy and building a community, being nimble, right? And some of that is also emotional agility, mental toughness. Shift happens, right? There will be no's, right? And how do you respond? And what's your relationship to no? Hard work, right? Every time you go in the bathroom, he has a message, right? No one will outwork you. Development of work ethic. Readers are leaders. Being well-read, doing research. And I think that, the fifth thing that you mentioned is so important. It's relationship, right? Because we cannot be successful without a relationship. So just really appreciate that and sharing that. And, and I'm looking forward to the new book that you're coming out, Winnie, the Wall Street Wiz, right?
Winnie, the Wizard of Wall Street.
The Wizard of Wall Street, right? And so you have spent some time in Ghana and building and have taken your work global, right? Why? Why do that? Why Ghana? And what has that experience taught you?
So I was introduced to Ghana by another prolific writer. I don't even consider myself a prolific writer, but thank you, Shawn. About 11 years ago, I traveled to Ghana with Kwame Alexander, another really dope Black male writer, New York Times, celebrated novelist, has a bunch of stuff coming out, doing something with Disney and some other stuff. Traveled to Ghana with Kwame Alexander and about 4 writers. I think there were about 5 of us total, and we ended up. There's a queen mother out of DC named Juanita Britton. She wanted to introduce us to a village that she just became a queen mother of. The village is probably it's near Koforidua, for anyone who's familiar with Ghana, probably hours drive outside of Accra. And she wanted to bring us to the village to see how we could support the positive development of a village of some children who were already doing well, but really wanted to see how, as a group of Black Americans, we could kind of support the work. The short story is we fell in love with this village. We started raising money. We did a teacher training institute in Accra. We paid for a couple of those students to go to high school. We've delivered maybe about 5,000 children's books. We've even built, under the leadership of Kwame Alexander, we actually built an impressive library. We literally built a brand new library in the village, which has been in the village for a couple of years. Our brother Kenny Braswell has also been supportive of that work. But Stephen and Shawn, here's what I figured out. And I haven't been back to Ghana because of COVID, but I'll be in Ghana in June. I won a Fulbright fellowship in 2019, but my Fulbright has been put on hold because of COVID. Here's what I discovered, y'all. I discovered that for me, I got to get out of this country at least once or twice a year to regroup and to heal. Because living in this country, dealing with racism and white supremacy, and then also dealing with what America has done to people of color, Black people, our First Nation people, Native Americans, Latinos, Asians, other people of color. What America does to people of color, for me, I realized I got to get out of this country to regroup. And so for me, going to Ghana and other countries in Africa, I've also been to Istanbul. You know, I had an amazing pilgrimage to Istanbul that I got to get out of America to regroup and to kind of heal my wounds from everything that happens. And I come back on fire. For me, it's a personal development retreat for me, and looking forward to going to do this Fulbright. I'll be in Ghana for 6 weeks at the University of Ghana doing a project. And then, Shawn, starting in 2022, 2023, I'll be taking boys to Ghana for part of their rites of passage training. That will be sort of outside of writing the children's books that I'm working on. And I'm finishing up my PhD at Morgan State University. That's going to be my larger legacy for Black people in this country, to be able to take your sons and grandsons to West Africa to complete their rites of passage training.
Wow, brother, you are an inspiration. I want to thank you for raising the bar for me personally. I finally made it to, you were telling me for almost 10 years, come to Ghana, come with me, come. I kept saying next year.
Right.
Finally made it at the end of 2019, bring it in 2020, and looking forward for my next trip, right? We didn't go together. I went the year of return, but for my next trip, coming with you and building with you as well, and just this whole notion of regeneration and healing, I think is so important. You were sharing that you are coming off a 30-day social media fast, and here we are on social media, right, having this conversation. What did that do for you, right? Stephen and I are trying to get 30 minutes.
Right, y'all trying to get 30 minutes.
We're trying to get 30 minutes, right? What has the 30-day social media fast done for you?
For me, it's been really therapeutic in terms of understanding that I'm in control. See, I think a lot of times, y'all, we lose ourselves on social media. I mean, earlier, Shawn, you were saying one day you'll go on, you're looking for something really specific. You got an agenda when you go on, and then 30 minutes later, you reading something about Kanye West or the Kardashians or something, right? Some foolishness. And so I think for me, crystallizing the space, understanding that I'm in control. There are a lot of researchers that are now calling social media, and there's good and bad on social media, that are calling social media digital heroin and electronic cocaine. And I definitely think that we got to take an even more closer look at what social media and mass media is having, the impact that it's having on our children. Because media and sports and entertainment is like an opiate, right? You got cats that won't even, they'll skip going to a college class to spend more time on Instagram or on TikTok. So I think we got to be ever mindful. But for me, the next two books that I'm working on, and I talked about, Winnie the Wizard of Wall Street. I fell in love with writing children's books, and even though I'm not published through a major publishing house, my sales rival Simon & Schuster and also Scholastic in terms of many of their children's book, authors, because I'm a hustler. I'm born and raised in Baltimore. But my next two books, Winnie the Wizard of Wall Street, and then the next book is Adjust Your Crown, a teen leadership guide for young people of color. So I'm doing this teen leadership guide for young people. Those are two major works, and I realized that I needed to stay away from social media for a little bit of time to crystallize my thoughts, to expand my research, do more interviews, and the time that I would have been spending on social media would be time I could put into those two new books.
I love that. Love that. Woo. there's so much. I've been sitting quietly, kind of processing all you say, and let me just first, David, just acknowledge you for the amazing work that you're doing and you're committed to doing. And I listen to your story. I talk about having clarity in your vision, in the mission that you feel called to do. I've said that till, I'm sure everyone in Blaze Nation is probably sick of me talking about having clarity. But listen, David is an example to us all about having clarity, about being real and being transparent in our story. And that you have today. And you shared so much and been vulnerable to kind of sharing your own experiences. And so thank you for that. Thank you for the work you're doing and the impact you are having. What's that big vision? What's that end goal that you want to accomplish in all this? Where do you see this platform 10 years from now?
So 10. I mean, and when you think about when I work with young people, I talk about future orientation, right? Future orientation, and we gotta see ourselves down the road. And a lot of times, our children and our community doesn't necessarily have that kind of forward thinking. See, for me, you guys, in the next 3 to 5 years, me personally, and when I say me personally, along with my family, I'll be living 6 months out of the year here and 6 months out of the year overseas. Because I see the trajectory of this country, and I find that there are some greener pastures for me outside of the United States. And just an amazing book that I dare y'all to read. I dare you to read. Quitting America by Randall Robinson. Quitting America by Randall Robinson is just amazing, an amazing book. Just for me, where I'm moving, Stephen, mentally and philosophically, I'm going to be a part-time U.S. citizen, right? They're just other places outside of here that I find are calling me. I love the international work that I've had a chance to do, but then also want to be able to really groom a lot of children's book writers who want to tell positive, super dope stories about Black family life. Again, there are too many negative stories about Black family life in children's literature. And so when people go to my website, when schools reach out to me, they're blown away because they didn't think these kind of children's books exist. None of the male characters in my books have gone to jail, have been locked up or on drugs. All of them are really super dope young Black males. So the first 6 books I've written are for really for anybody, but have a strong influence in terms of Black males. And then my daughters were putting so much pressure on me to write some books for girls. That's why Winnie the Wizard of Wall Street is coming out. But then the other thing for me, man, is I want to get more young Black males out of this country so that they can understand who they are within the context of being an African American. And I think this rites of passage work that we're really going to be ramping up, taking boys from the U.S. to Ghana, to Senegal, to South Africa, to Kenya, so that they can continue their rites of passage training, is sort of the next iteration of my work.
I love that.
And just being in the United States for 6 months out of the year, I know that you'll be doing a great deal of impact. What those 6 months right here, some of your work has entailed making sure Black boys, people of color, get home safely after a police stop, right? So one of your creative entrepreneurial endeavors is this model of get home safely, 10 rules of survival, right? Talk a little bit about that and that offering to our community.
And I don't know if we had a capacity to show that video because it's only about maybe 90 seconds long. But I basically took what my parents taught me growing up, and I created the 10 rules of survival if stopped by the police, which is in our Dare to Be King curriculum. And so a group out of Chicago had heard about our work. We teamed up and they created a video that is so impactful based on our 10 rules of survival. 10 rules of survival. It's called Get Home Safely. And it's the 10 rules, if you will, that every person needs to learn or to internalize to navigate a police encounter. And there's a video. You can go to YouTube or Vimeo. It's called Get Home Safely. It's a very short video. And for me, a lot of people, and it's gone viral a bunch of times, right? I've gone on CNN a couple of times, PBS, almost every major news outlet covered it. And while the 10 rules are basic, it is at least a starting point. Too often, we're not talking to our children about navigating encounters with the police. And I believe, Shawn and Stephen, I've been stopped by the police in probably every state in the United States, with the exception of maybe I've been stopped in North Dakota, South Dakota. There's only been a couple of places that I haven't been stopped. But I believe that these 10 rules are at least a framework for navigating encounters by the police. There are no guarantees. I tell families there are no guarantees, but at least I have created a body of work to begin to educate families on having that courageous conversation about what to do when stopped by the police. And it's painful. Every time I see the video, I tear up. I showed the video last week to some social work students, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house that in the year 2021, we've had a Black president, we've had a Black attorney general, we probably have more Black elected officials than we've ever had, but we still have to navigate that treacherous terrain in terms of interactions and encounters with the police.
Tell us about Adjust Your Crown. All right, that's one of your new books coming out. And just really appreciate your focus on rites of passage, leadership development, and tell us about what's the content in that book that's coming out in 2020.
So Adjust Your Crown is going to be a really innovative leadership guide for teens. I think that we have an amazing society of, if you will, of young people who often don't have the mentorship, the guidance, and the support from adult allies. We demonize young people. We demonize their music. Shawn, I remember, you grew up in New York. I grew up in Baltimore. I remember hiding in the basement playing NWA so my mother wouldn't hear me and throw a Bible or throw some holy water. So I was listening to NWA F the Police, right? I'm listening to the same 2 Live Crew.
Yeah.
I'm on record. I loved the 2 Live Crew when I was 17, 18 years old, right? And so I think that we in a society, y'all did too, stop playing.
Uncle Luke.
We want to demonize young people because of the music that they listen to, right? So this teen leadership curriculum is really going to, there's going to be a media literacy. There's going to be a whole media literacy component into it designed to help young people, so if you're listening to a song by Megan Thee Stallion or Doja Cat, that you can listen to the words, because oftentimes young people are so mesmerized by the beats that they may not hear all of the messages that are within the music. So there's going to be a strong section in this leadership curriculum for teens on media literacy. There's going to be a strong piece in there around this notion of community service. Dr. King talked about our rent to society is the service that we pay to others. Young people are there. There's just this disconnect. There's this intergenerational divide between young and old. The problem in America is not, we don't have a youth problem, we have an adult problem. We don't have a youth. We don't. When I see a 16-year-old out there jacking a car, while he is responsible for his actions, I'm trying to figure out who have been the adults that have been in his life or her life. You know, when you got 16-year-old girls out here robbing people. So the question has to be the question is not what's wrong with her, but what happened to her. And part of what happened to her is the adults in her life, right? And so this curriculum, Adjust Your Crown, a teen leadership guide for young people of color, is really designed to bring adults and young people together to really tease out notions around leadership.
Wow, that's so powerful. And so for our audience and folks that will watch the replay, how can we support and add MissionFuel to this amazing body of work that you are continuing to build, right? We didn't even get a chance to talk about you being a PhD candidate at Morgan State, right, with a focus on Black fathers. But how can we help and support you, David?
So let me just say that once again, stay tuned for some of the work. I got a couple articles that are in queue to be published. Working on my dissertation is Black Fathers Raising Daughters, because we talk a lot about Black fathers and sons, but there's little academic research on Black fathers raising daughters. So Shawn and Stephen, I know this is like a PG broadcast, so I can't say what I want to say. But one of my mentors out of Baltimore, Richard Rowe, always says, if we would just shut up for 10 years and just work.
Wow.
For anybody that's listening, let's stop getting distracted. Kanye gonna continue to act crazy. The Kardashians gonna still be out of control. Jay-Z and Beyonce gonna still do what they gotta do. It's time for us to work. There's gotta be a sense of urgency in our communities. And those of us who have been gifted enough to be able to produce content, right? Because a lot of us are content masters. We just don't know it yet. We gotta produce so many different forms of content, whether it's multimedia, whether it's art, whether it's poetry, whether it's writing, whatever you do, right? If you want to come up with a vegan line of treats, whatever your gifting is, it's time for us to move because our community is in trouble. So if this wasn't a PG conversation, I would tell y'all to shut the F up. And that's what I usually tell people, and I drop the mic and walk off, because we are needed. No one is coming to save us. I don't care who the mayor is of your city. I don't care who the governor is of your state. It's going to take us to do the work. We got so many of excuses. I'm a start on that next year. When children go to college. Life ain't promised to none of us. It is time for us to dust off them passion projects.
And
start working.
Yes.
Wow.
I love to see, I love.
I got to park at this step the F up, right? and while, we don't want Stephen to get kicked off of LinkedIn.
Right. This is a family show. I'm sorry, Stephen.
Before we turn over to Stephen, I just need you to address this, David. Suppose the F word is fear, right? And we say, shut the fear up.
I like that, Shawn. I like that. I'm a little rough around the edges, man.
Yeah. I know you got your late hour programs that you're going to be on, and you can do that, right? And what do you say to someone that is like, wow, I'm inspired by David Miller, Dr. David Miller, being prophetic about that, but I'm scared. And he's telling me to focus on the next decade and shut the F up. But how do you shut the fear up and just work?
So a lot of people think that I've lived a very interesting life, but all of us have lived, if you Black or brown in America, you've lived an interesting life, right? I I always tell people that if you ain't hear anything else I've said, if I can do it, you can do it. When them dudes shot my best friend, I was the first dude to grab the gun and I was ready to go shoot somebody. Right? But because of God, and I know a lot of times we get real nervous when we talk about God and spirituality. Shawn and Stephen, I'm standing on this dude's porch, gun in his face, ready to blow this dude's brains out. But I started thinking about the God I serve. Tears rolling down my eyes, man. And I didn't kill this boy. This was August of 1989 because I believe in the God that our God may have many different names, but there's a God force in all of us that wants you to work and produce products and services, not to save our community, because our community doesn't need saving. Our community needs healing, right? And so I know you've been through some stuff, but you got to turn your tragedy into triumph. When I go into these juvenile facilities, I tell these young boys, don't let the college degrees fool you, right? I know what it's like having that gun in your hand, ready to blow somebody's brains out. But I decided that Peter and Carol Miller didn't raise a killer. Your mother and father didn't raise a killer. But it's really time that we zero back into that life force, that God in our midst, who is telling you, who is giving you signs. Get up off the couch, turn the TikTok off, and start working. It's just time, y'all. Because real quick, because I know we got to shut down. I was talking to Shawn, Stephen. I don't know if y'all know Bilal Quayum, another elder in Philadelphia. Yeah. Who's about 77, who's still doing street interventions at 77 years old in Philadelphia, still going out on the streets, talking to young men who are most likely to shoot somebody. And Bilal was just telling me, we were just talking about the homicide rates in Philly, in Baltimore, in Chicago, in Memphis, that there have been 55 Black women that have been killed in Philadelphia already, and the year isn't over. We got to work, y'all. It's time to work. I'm telling y'all, it's time to work.
David, before we let you go, man, I'm so fired up right now, and I know a lot of our community is fired up as well. I'm just going through the comments, and there's so much goodness. But there's somebody over on Facebook that shared a question about being mentored and guided by David, has a desire to write children's books, has a son with autism, who's on the autism spectrum. And
reach out to me, please.
What would be your advice to, I'll definitely encourage that person to reach out directly, but what's your advice to those who aspire to write or to create product? You talked about us needing to create, right? I love to say you got to be comfortable being bad till it gets good, right? And you talked about, progress over perfection, right? But what's your advice to those who are sitting on the fence?
You want me to say it again?
One more time for the people in the back.
Shawn added fear. I use another word. Shut the fear up and work. I use another expletive. But this is a PG show, so I'm sorry, Steve. It's time to work. Do your research. Do your really quickly. And I don't
first step.
Huh?
Is that the first step? Is that the first?
Do your research. Do your research. You got to do your research to figure out. Oftentimes, see, there are no new ideas under the sun. But every creator has different energy. Shawn and I could sit down and decide to write the same book about the same topic, but the way that he approaches it may be different than the way that I approach it. Yeah. And so there are no new ideas under the sun, and that's the reason why you want to do your research. If you want to do a children's book about autism, you want to look and see what's already out there. I will tell you there are few books out about Black children, Latino children with special needs. if you order my book Khalil's Way, don't go to Amazon, go to my website.
That's right.
IamDavidMiller.com. We give Amazon too much money. IamDavidMiller.com. Khalil is a math genius, but he has ADHD. So I've already started producing children's books for children that have special needs, and I'm actually going to be doing a book about a child that has bipolar. But the time now is to work. So do your research, and then do your research in terms of spending time in the libraries, doing internet searches, looking at other books, and then reaching out to other authors. I will talk to anybody that wants to write a children's book free. I won't even charge you, because I really, and again, you can't be calling me 30 times. I mean, we can set up some parameters, but I really want to change the game of children's literature to make it more representative, because when you look at the 2017 data, only like maybe 11% of the children's books published in the United States have a Black character as a lead character. About 27% of the children's books produced in this country have either an animal or some kind of object or some kind of make-believe story, right? And so when we talk about representation, Black and brown, books for First Nation people, Asian kids, the landscape is wide open.
Yeah.
Wow.
Listen, we are at time. I could go on for part 2 right now, Shawn. I know you probably could too. Rarely am I the one that just lets a conversation go past the hour mark. But I'm gonna let Blaze Nation get about their day. I just want to thank you so very much for being our guest. You're welcome back here anytime. Everybody, make sure you go to IamDavidMiller.com, order up those books. As David said, we're not giving Amazon money today.
No.
And I am just encouraged by these conversations each and every Wednesday. So make sure that you are tuning in each and every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern to join Shawn and I for these amazing conversations. Shawn, anything else before we get going?
No, I just want to let David Miller know how much I love him, how much of an inspiration he is, not only to the nation, but to me, David. And I just thank you for just continuously forcing me and others to raise our bar. And we're going to shut the F up and get to work.
And man, I want to thank you two giants, man, for this platform, man. This is just an amazing platform. And as Shawn and I always say, man, we got to be masters of our own media, man. We can't wait for the New York Times or the Washington Post. So those that are in queue, support it. I don't know if you're taking donations, Stephen. Everybody get their checkbook out, Cash App. I mean, we got to make sure we become masters of our own media. So I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you all so much. Have a blessed day. Join us here on Friday. I'm having my last conversation for Cybersecurity Awareness Month with Talia Parker of Black Girls in Cyber. Going to be a dope conversation. Make sure you tune in Friday morning at 8:30. I'll see you then. Have a blessed day.